Chapter 20. Finally, freedom. So that's what happened to Joe O'Donnell and his comrades who walked almost 600 miles to freedom. As for me, my liberation came in a slightly different manner. Once the POW troop train arrived in Hanover, I spent the rest of my captivity lying on a straw pallet in a barn-like structure, enveloped in delirious fog, alternating between burning fever and body-racking chills. Now, in addition to dysentery and hepatitis, I had pneumonia. With no antibiotics or other medication available, I just passed the days going in and out of consciousness. At times I would see Elaine so clearly in my hallucinations that I reached out to touch her. And other times I was so weak I couldn't even remember her facial features. Then I would really panic. The only way I would calm myself was by thinking of my family, particularly my mother, whom I knew by now would be worried sick at the last letter I sent was a week ago. Other than that, I remember very little from my days there, and it's probably a good thing. Finally, one morning, I awoke to the sound of men cheering. The news had spread that during the night, after the German guards had locked us in, they had abandoned their post and disappeared. We fended for ourselves for 2 days, and then I again heard lots of noise. The yelling grew louder, and I heard men shouting that they could see British tanks coming down the road. Then there was even mightier cheer. The British 7th Armored Division had broken down the fences. I tried to get up and see, but I was too weak. I was so sick I couldn't even raise my head to look at my liberators. I could only whisper my thanks a few hours later as I was carried on a stretcher to the makeshift ambulance. Those badly in need of medical attention, like me, were flown to England on a C-47 resupply aircraft that had originally been used to deliver barrels of gasoline to original depots before the shipment to the front. The airplane's fuselage was like a round tube, and we were packed tight, most of us lying on stretchers on the floor, and close to death and in incredible pain, but I willed myself to endure whether crude medical procedures the medics used to keep me alive. I had not gone through all I had to give up, all of this to give up now. I was vaguely aware that the plane stunk, a disgusting blend of stale fuel and hideous body odors. It was cold and uncomfortable, and the ride was rocky as hell, but I didn't care. I was going home. Back in Aldernon, my mother had never given up hope that I would come back alive, but she confided later that she was beside herself when in late April, after hearing nothing from me for nearly 2 months, word arrived that there was a message for her in the telegram office in Eland. Terrified of what the contents had to offer, she put off going for several hours. Then she and my dad, accompanied by a neighbor for moral support, made the trip, this time in the beautiful spring day. With a heavy heart and trembling hands, my father opened the message and read aloud. The Secretary of War desires to inform you that your son, Private Gerhard Johnson, was returned to military control 21 April 45. Report further states, however, he is hospitalized in Europe. New address and further information will follow direct from the hospital. It was truly a miracle, but not wanting to celebrate lest someone who had been less fortunate might be nearby, and not to demonstrative way. Anyway, my parents just embraced quietly, heaved a collective sigh of relief, and went arm in arm to church to thank God for my deliverance. Their next stop was the Wooler residence, where Elaine, who saw them coming from the walk, refused to answer the door. When her mother had greeted them and a happy news was delivered to Elaine, her reaction was a bit less restrained than my parents' had been.